Hello, it's Julie from Spellbound, and today I'm going to show you how to make a simple Himmeli design using long bugles and some fine wire. Now Himmeli or Himmeli, I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation, is a traditional Finnish craft whereby they use pieces of hollow straw and normally a fine thread to make these wonderful geometric designs, and they can actually get quite complicated and really quite large. Now to make a more durable design, we're going to be using these lovely sparkly bugles. Now these are 30mm and 50mm in length, which gives us different proportions. And we're going to be constructing some triangles. Now the triangles convert into tetrahedrons, and to enable us to get all these little dangly bits and pieces, we're also going to be using some seed beads to help to give some strength and some articulation. It's a great craft, and once you've learnt the basics, you'll be able to create all sorts of different shapes. Have a look on the internet, look up Himmeli, and you'll be amazed at what you can make. I have here the ingredients I'm going to need to make one of our lovely Glacier icicles. The most important beads here are the long bugles. I've got 6 in the 30mm length and 3 in the 50mm length. I've checked they all match for size because there's a tiny variation sometimes, and I've checked that the ends are nice and cleanly cut, because sometimes, unfortunately, with the long bugles you do sometimes get a chipped end and you need to discard those beads. I've also got some size 8 seed beads to match, and those will go at the corners to stop me pulling everything up too tight, and they'll also help me do the points and the articulation in the design. I've got some faceted beads, some jump rings and some head pins to make the dangles. So in facets there's 2 4mm, 1 6mm and 1 8mm, 2 4mm jump rings and 2 head pins. I've also got 1.2 meters of soft silver plated wire. Now this is 0.315mm in diameter. It's nice and flexible, so I'll be able to pull it tight to make these little corners, but equally it's quite forgiving, so if I get a kink in it, I can smooth the kink out. Now before I start anything, I'm going to move all the bits I don't immediately need out of the way, because the biggest problem with wire is it will catch on anything that's around your work surface, so put any half-finished projects just out of reach so it can't catch. Now before I put this sample aside, I'm going to show you what we're going to do first. To start off with, we're going to make a triangle with a little hanging attachment on the top. We're going to convert that small triangle into a tetrahedron, and then we'll come down and make this bottom point, which is actually another tetrahedron, but just with 3 longer sides. We'll then attach the dangles. So I'm going to put that out of the way and bring in my wire. Now I'm going to start about 50 centimeters from the end of the wire, and I'm going to put on 1 short bugle, and 2 of my seed beads, and I bring them down to about 50 centimeters from the end. Now I'm going to move 1 of the seed beads out of the way slightly so I can access the first seed bead I put on, the one next to the long bugle, and I'm going to pull through. Now as I pull through, I'm being very careful to keep the wire nice and smooth, and as I pull through, that comes up nice and tight and forms an anchor, and that will actually be where we hang our icicle. Now I'm going to complete the triangle. I've got one side of the triangle on, so I need 2 more beads to complete the triangle. So it's 1 long bugle and 2 long bugles, and as you can see I'm pushing them right up to the previous bead. Now this is the trick to working with wire and keeping it as kink free as possible. If I was to have them about here and I start to make the stitch with the wire, I'd end up with a corner in the wire there and a corner in the wire there, and they're not where I want them to be. So then I'd have to ease them down, straighten out the corners, and you can get into a tangle. So push them right up to where you want them to be. Now this is the short end of the wire, so I'm going to pass that up through the first bugle I put on. And there it is. Make sure these are pushed right up as I pull through. You can see it's forming the corner where I want it to form, and this is the wire that's pulling through. It's nice and smooth. And there's my triangle. So now we're going to make a second triangle here, and I'm going to need 2 beads, 2 of the shorter bugles. So here we go, that's 1 and 2. You can see I've pushed them right up to where I want them to be, and to complete the triangle, if I bring that across, you can see I need to pass the end of the wire up through that side there. So straighten it out and pass it up through that bugle. So we've got 1, 2, 3 bugles make the triangle. Make sure they're all pushed up to the previous join. There we go. So now we've got 2 triangles side by side. If I bring them together, you can see we're just missing this link here to complete the tetrahedron. I'm going to look at the top of my arrangement here, and you can see that those 2 bugles are directly attached. There's a little bit of wire between them, and these 2 bugles are directly attached but through this extra bit here, so it's a little bit less stable here. So I'm going to choose to go down this bugle to reposition the end of the wire, ready to add the last bead. So down through that bugle, and I'm going to keep the wire nice and smooth. You can see it's coming through. I keep making sure it's smooth, and pull it up tight. And that's much more stable at the top as well. Right, last part of the tetrahedron is this bugle here, and it's the last of my shorter bugles. Pop that on, push it right up to the junction again, and to complete I'm going to go up the 3rd side of that triangle. So I'm going up towards our little hanging position again, and I'm going to pull through. As you can see, that makes the corners exactly where I want them to be, and that's my tetrahedron complete. Now I've got a long length of wire here, and that's going to add the long point of the icicle. Now at present, just untangling it because it's got into a little bit of a catch, as you can see. Sorry, I'll pick that up again. At present, the wire is coming out from one of these bugles that's leading down from the attachment point. If I was to add the point directly onto there, it would jam up against that bugle and it wouldn't sit particularly nicely. What I want to do, there's the top of my first tetrahedron again, what I want to do is create a triangle using this as the base and then 2 long sides. So if this is going to be the base, I need to pass the wire through there first. So I'm actually going to be attaching both sides of my new triangle to this base bead. Now, just need to make sure that's nice and smooth so it pulls through. When it pulls through tight, you can feel everything tighten up. Right, I'm going to straighten the end of my wire, and I'm going to thread on 1 long bugle for the first side of the long portion of the triangle. Now, when we complete our Glacier, we need a little extra hanging position at the bottom for our bottom dangle. So I'm going to add that now. So it's 2 seed beads just like we did before. Push everything right up to the previous junction. You can see it's tight there. I need to pass back through this seed bead, pulling this second seed bead up to be my anchor. So back through that seed bead and pull through. Now, to get this up close, I can actually hold on to the seed bead and pull, and the wire will run through the seed bead. It doesn't really do this with bugles because they've got sharper ends, but the seed bead will behave nicely. As you can see, that's all good and tight. Straighten the end of my wire again, and you just straighten it through your fingers. A bugle. Down to the previous junction, and this is the top of the triangle. This is where I came out and went down, back up again. So I'm going to go through this bugle again because that's the base of my triangle that I'm building. There we go. That's pushed right up to the junction there. I'm keeping this nice and smooth, and it pulls in neatly. Right, now I'm going to need to create a triangle here. I've already got 1 long side, and this is the base here, which is the short bugle from the top tetrahedron. At the moment the wire isn't in the right place, so I'm going to move it and pass it through this short bugle. Now, as you can see, we've got lots of bugles coming together here, and if I was to pass straight from the current bugle, which is this one, to this one, everything jams up and it gets a little bit tight and the bugles grind against one another, and that's not good for the durability of the design. So to give it a little bit of elbow room, I'm going to add 1 seed bead all the way down to the junction and pass through the bugle that's going to be the base of my new triangle. As you can see, I'm pulling through and doing it gradually to keep it all nice and neat. Keep that loop as smooth as you can. There we go. And that seed bead is pulled across that line into the gap, and now that feels really firm. That feels firm, and the joint feels firm as well. Now we're ready to make this side of the triangle, which is the remaining bugle bead. And that is going to come down to there. Now, in order to make sure everything comes to a nice neat point, remember the anchor we put in there? I'm going to wrap the wire around the top of the anchor before I pass back up the other side of the long triangle we're just making. Here we go. I haven't got that very straight. That's better. Move the anchor out the way. There we go, straight through first time when the end of the wire is straight. Now this is just pulling it through, just the same as before. Oh, pull it up nice and tight. There we go. Now, our basic shape is complete, but at the moment I'm missing a seed bead here and a seed bead there to make everything nice and stable. So I'm going to go through the base of the triangle I've just made. Just keeping that nice and smooth, keeping it smooth. Pull it through, and you can hear it pops in. Now you can see that's a bit wobbly at the moment, but if I add in the seed bead and I pass through the base of the next triangle around, that's come a little bit loose because it's attached to the other end of the wire. There we go. That's much firmer, and it's the same on the last junction. So now I have completed the framework for my Glacier icicle. Now I need to finish off the ends, and what we're going to do is we're going to twist the wire off neatly between two beads. So I've wrapped it round between this seed bead and this long bugle here, and I've done that twice. Now we can use wire cutters to get in and trim the wire, but you don't need to. You can just use your thumb, and if you hold the other side of the wire with your finger and thumb, so my thumbnail has gone against where I want it to break, which is there, I'm going to twist and pull and twist and pull, and as you do this, the work you're doing on the wire makes the wire brittle, and it breaks exactly where you want it to be trimmed. Put that aside. Now I just want to make sure this is stable here. Now at the moment it's a little bit wobbly, and it's because this bugle isn't directly joined to this bugle, there's a gap. So I'm going to pass down through this short bugle just to stabilise the joint. Now if you pick up the Glacier Icicle kit from us, you'll see there's an explanation in there about making sure that the joints that you make are all nice and complete, so every bugle is joined to its neighbour, and that makes a huge difference to the durability and the stability of your design. There we go. When you get it straight, it goes through easily. There we go. And that feels, a lot better. Now I'm going to finish off the wire just as I did on the previous side. So I'm wrapping it round a couple of times to make it firm. And then we're going to do that break to trim thing. So it's thumbnail against where we want it to break. I'm going to pull on this wire about 2 centimetres up, and I'm going to twist and pull. Sometimes it takes 10 goes round, sometimes it takes 20. But there we go. It's broken off nice and neat, and nobody will be able to find the end because it's so tidy. Right, I'm going to move the seed beads out of the way because I've already prepared the 2 dangles. I've threaded a head pin with a seed bead 4mm, seed bead 6mm, seed bead 8mm, seed bead, and I've put on a loop and a jump ring, and on this one here it's a head pin with a seed bead and a 4mm bead. Now to join this onto this very end seed bead here, I'm going to use a jump ring. I've got a 4mm jump ring, and I'm going to need 2 pairs of pliers to open the jump ring. So twist open the jump ring. Now because we're using size 8 seed beads, they've got a big enough hole that you can thread a 4mm jump ring straight through. Add on your dangle, and close the jump ring. There's our bottom dangle. Now our top dangle just needs to be wired into place. Now you can use the end of the wire before you finish it off, or you can join a new piece on. Now I need to thread that into the space before I fix it on, because otherwise you won't be able to thread it in because it's too long. So get that nice and central, and wind the wire around the junction. Now by using the jump ring at the top, it means everything dangles nicely. I'm going to break that off now, so thumb and pull. This one doesn't want to break, but there you go. And then we have our finished Glacier icicle. I've got a seed bead at the top, which will take a piece of monofilament, so I can hang them up from a twig or a branch on the tree, and I've got a really nice stylish modern decoration. Now if you've got the kit, you'll have enough materials to make 5 of these, which I think is a nice number just on a plain twig. I hope you enjoy making some. Thank you for watching.